What if the problem with work today isn't your job, your company, or your productivity system, but something deeper? Welcome to We Have a Spiritual Problem, a podcast where we confront the deeper questions beneath our personal struggles and collective crises. I am your host, Dr. Jeff Armstrong. I am not a theologian or a philosopher, or at least by training. I am a PhD exercise physiologist with an interest in the intersection of the physical and the spiritual. In this episode, I'm joined by Steven Puri, a former EVP at DreamWorks, a VP at 20th Century Fox, a three-time tech CEO, and now founder of the Sukha, a global community with over 34,000 people exploring the intersection of productivity and well-being. Steven has spent over 2 decades leading remote teams across high-stakes, high-performance industries, and what he's discovered is that the real key to meaningful, sustainable work has less to do with systems or software and more to do with soul. If you've ever wondered why work feels so draining, even when it's successful, or how to lead without losing yourself in the process, this conversation might reframe everything. Well, if you had the question at the time, I still got some questions because I was going to talk about kind of work and productivity and the spiritual issues that come along with that. Because we did kind of say we have a work problem that's a spiritual problem. And you've done a lot. As you kind of reached out to me, a lot of what you're doing with the and I'm trying to blank on the name of the project. The Sukha project, yeah. We were going to talk kind of a bit about that, and I feel like, wow, okay, now let's shift gears and talk about the Sukha project.
I'll tell you, the yoga thing actually connects the two, which is the funny thing.
All right, so let's get onto that. What is this?
I love talking about this because the thing that I do now, I do not earn any money from, but it is something that I'm so happy to do. And it goes back to the beginning of our talk today. I have a very strong thesis. We all have something great inside us. Are you going to get it out or not, right? And I wanted to help people, including myself, get it out. So working outwards from me and my problems, like I procrastinate, I recognize it, I label it, I try to understand it and forgive myself, but learn. I also get overwhelmed. There are times when I look at my task list and I just think, everything on there has to get done. I have no idea how I'm going to get it done. It's 8 a.m. I've got 11 a.m. with Jeff. I don't know when this is going to happen. Or there's something on there that's so big. It's just like, how can I make a dent in this goal? And I don't think I'm alone in that. Now there are thousands of people who are in this community who use our website to get into a flow state and do something, hopefully meaningful. And I hear echoes of the same problems that I have in, people that talk to me, people that DM'd me in there, people who reach out to me separately and just be like, yes, I promised myself that tomorrow at 9 a.m. I'm going to be doing X, Y, Z. It is my intention, but somehow the pull of email and returning kind of meaningless emails, or scrolling on my phone through the news or something is appealing, and it takes me away. And that, I understand why that is. I understand there are a lot of very, very smart, well-paid people who dedicate themselves to how do I keep you in my distraction. I earn money from you being distracted with me, with my company. And I think it's pernicious. I think that when you arrive at a point in your life where you have some intention, you're not just drifting through your teenage years being like, I don't know whom I'm going to date or where I should go to dinner or what movie I should see. Or, like when you get to a point where you're like, okay, what is the meaning of my life? Like, what am I doing with my life? That hopefully that intention leads you to, okay, let me surround myself with the people and the tools and the ideas that allow me to manifest that. Or else you do lie in your deathbed, the grumpy old guy being like, I could have been a contender. I could have done something. I could have led, no one wants to be around that. Yeah. No one wants to be friends with the guy or the girl who's like, I could have done something, but and it's like, no, you could. I mean, short of getting hit by lightning and your brain fried when you were 12 or something, what I mean? Like that maybe makes it harder. But for most of us who are semi-intelligent, who have the use for our faculties and our limbs, like you can do something, almost anything in the world. So do it. Don't complain
Do you
if
know
you
who
don't.
Maddie Stepanek is?
Excuse me?
Or was? Do you know who Maddie Stepanek was?
No, I should I? I don't. Sorry.
Oh, I don't know if you should. I'm trying to think. He's probably passed away. It's been more than 10 years or so. But he was a kid with a rare form of muscular dystrophy.
Oh,
Wasn't expected to live very long. I think he ended up dying at the age of about 14. But in that lifespan, he wrote, I think, about 5 different books of poetry called Heart Songs. And, he was befriended by Jimmy Carter, became very well-known, famous, and just had so many different profound statements that he's made in such a short life. And, if he had been a normal, healthy kid, who knows, he would have been probably going and playing soccer and, doing things like that as a child instead of writing these profound poems. And we have a sign as you come down the steps. I wanted it right as you come down from the second story downstairs to see every day. It says, "Remember to play after every storm."
nice.
And that was one of his poems. And he's a kid that, I think he lost siblings to the same MS. And,
Wow.
He could have just cowered down and said, my life is miserable. I've been dealt this bad, this bad hand.
Yeah.
And, blame God, blame whoever.
Yeah.
But instead, it's like he made something of what limited years he had available to him.
I have amazing respect for that. I would like to believe that I have that resilience and that determination. I may or may not. I have not been confronted with that sort of challenge.
Yeah.
A frequent theme in listening to you, do you know that Ryan Holiday wrote that book, The Obstacle is the Way?
I don't know that book.
He's a guy who he's a marketer at American Apparel and now has adopted this sort of like stoic philosophy that he promotes on his blog and his, I think, podcast and stuff like that, right? So he's adopted this, which is really smart from a marketing point of view to pick up and say, I'll get this thing. But he wrote this book that was very well written called The Obstacle is the Way, one of his couple books. And recurring sort of leitmotif in what you talk about is this sense of like it is against obstacles or opposing force that things happen, whether it's muscular dystrophy giving him the challenge of doing something, he becomes a poet, whether it is the friction of the Grand Canyon's creation or the tectonic pressures that create the mountains, or being confronted with hatred or racism or misogyny or something that causes you to rise up and go, no, I want to change the world and to be a happier, healthier place. It's interesting how that factors a lot into how you frame things.
Yeah, and I'm not sure where that comes from. Yeah, I think part of it is probably growing up. My dad was a management consultant. He did a lot with, he wrote a book called Catalytic Management. I'm not sure how many hundreds of books it sold. It didn't sell a lot, but he was a guy who had basically one year of college. My mom and him, they had my sister after the freshman year of college. He ended up doing sales for a number of different companies, worked for Xerox, and I think it was when he was working with Xerox that he kind of branched off to doing more management consulting. But with a relatively small amount of education, he did go back in his, I think, 40s or so and got his bachelor's degree. But he, was giving advice to top executives at Ford and Chrysler and U.S. Steel.
Oh, that's pretty cool.
Different companies. Yeah. And, I think I got a lot of that from him, just from those writings that he did, but also just kind of from his example. He was somebody, he actually tried out for the Pittsburgh Steelers, never played high school or college
Really?
football, actually made it to training camp. Tried out as a punter. And I don't know how he got on the camp, because nowadays, if I just decided I wanted to go try out for the Steelers, there's no way in heck they're going to let me on camp.
That's amazing.
Yeah. He ended up kind of getting not forced into retirement per se, but his wife took the position. She was elevated from directing the YWCA in Pittsburgh to being she was moved to New York to be the I think it was COO, but then they fired the CEO, and so she became CEO for it was at least 3 to 5 years. And so they moved to New York City. Mm-hmm. It's like he can't really pick up his business and move to New York. So, he was there, and, she was working. She's like, well, you used to do some acting. Why don't you see if you can get some acting work? And so he did. And, again, I think if he had stayed there a little bit longer, he would have had a few more, like some speaking roles in some bigger movies. But, he was a regular extra on Law and Order Criminal Intent, where you watch every episode of the first season, he's in it.
Oh, my God. Wow. Okay.
Yeah. If you watch Wedding Crashers, there's like one scene where, depending on the cut of the movie, it's either him alone on screen or him and this woman. Oh. And there was the movie, if you've ever connected with the movie, it's part of the family with the Douglas family. It was like Michael, Kurt, and Cameron Douglas were all in this.
No, I don't know that one. You got me on that one.
Yeah, and it just centered around the relationship of the 3 generations of the Douglases. And the mother in the family, the wife of Kirk Douglas, dies, and they're doing a wake at the home. And Kirk Douglas himself actually asked for my dad to be sitting at the table with them during this wake. So he's kind of on camera. You only see kind of the back quarter of his head, but if you know he's there, you know he's there. And we watch the movie Elf every year to see him way in the background. So, he did a lot of this kind of stuff. And, I always looked at it as like, and I struggled with it for many years where, he almost got the gold ring, or the brass ring, but never quite got it. And, I struggled with that as being a shortcoming as opposed to, God, that guy tried so many things, that most people wouldn't have the guts to even attempt to do. And it's that effort, that attempt, that is the most important thing that we do in our life. It's not the outcome per se. It's that we're making the effort and that we are, again, facing the obstacles and growing in some way, that we're doing something.
Okay, so you touched on something that Tony, my partner in the Sukha, he and I both agree upon, which is we thought there are all these great techniques that the distracting apps use to encourage you to use them, right?
Right.
Are there ways to use those where the thing that you want to do then is actually move towards your intention, like do something with your life? So one of the things we thought is we could have a point system where you can sort of see, how did I do today in my session? Measure yourself day over day, week over week sort of thing. And that could be based on what did you get done, which is a valid way to measure things. Like, I did 3 tasks. By the way, I time boxed them. I said this would take 35 minutes. I did it in 35. You should get, points for being intentional, right? Not going into YouTube for an hour and watching, clips from movies or something, right? One of the things we did was we said, you know what? The fact that you started, that's meaningful. You should be rewarded for that. So we decided you get 100 points simply by opening and saying, start. Because that's hard. It is easy to not start. That was the whole thought. Sense. No more coming. Sorry. You're pausing like, does this get better? No, that was the thought.
No, I was just thinking, how do I build off of that? Because that is a profound, again, another profound statement that, the whole point in life is to just make the step. Start.
Right. You're not journey of 1,000 miles, whatever. Exactly. Totally with you. I'll tell you a funny story to make it a little more lighthearted, but relates to yoga and relates to this, which is, so there was an early version of our platform that had a working title, and we had early users kind of like playing with it. And Laura and I got married. We're heading off to our honeymoon. We met in yoga. Yoga's a big part of our life. It's a daily practice, right? So we're going to Bali. Very grateful. Point in my life where we can go to Bali for 10 days, chill out, like have our honeymoon, be together, do yoga at the yoga barn, that kind of stuff. So I was talking to her about the trip, and I said, you know what? I've been struggling for the right name for this, and I think it's cool the way Amazon doesn't necessarily mean bookseller. Like Nike doesn't really mean shoe company. You know what I mean? But it's a strong,
Right.
powerful name that kind of represents a feeling. Again, the thing. And once you think about, okay, what does Nike mean? In Greek, like what does the Amazon river represent? You don't go, well, it's a river company. And I hope while I'm gone, maybe the universe will speak to me and kind of give me some inspiration for this. So I was like, I wish that for you. Good luck. So the first day we got there, I said, do you mind if I talk to a couple people who are using it right now and just ask them what's their favorite thing? Because maybe over 10 days, that'll bubble up out of my unconscious and be like, oh, here's the cool Nike thing of it, right? So she's like, go for it. I'm going to go to the pool. I will see you at dinner. So I dropped in the group chat. And, the way the app works is it's a website. You hit play, you get beautiful music. It blocks your, phone, your notifications and stuff, lets you focus, right? So I dropped in the group chat. Hey, anybody who has 10 minutes would love to talk. Did 3 quick Zooms. The third one, I was just about done. And the guy, I was going to the wrap up, hey, Jeff, thank you for your time. It's been 8 minutes. I promise we'll be done in 10. So, I'll let you go. And he just said to me, Steven, you asked the wrong questions. You asked me, what's my favorite feature? Is it the music? Is the smart assistant? Is the timer? He's like, this is not the right question. I was like, okay, guide me. I'll take the bait. What's the right question? He said, you should have asked me, why do I pay you? And I was like, that's kind of bold. I mean, we only charge 30 cents a day. It just pays the Amazon Web Services bill and the Google Firebase bill and stuff. So I was like, but okay, I'll take the bait. Why do you pay me? He said, well, I realize I have 2 kinds of days now. At 3 o'clock, I can be playing with my kids. They're 2 and 4. Or at 6 o'clock, I can be down on myself and be like, where the hell did the day go? And I said, I realized the difference is in the morning, did I open your app? So I pay you because my kids are not going to be 2 and 4 forever. Okay. Wow. Thank you. So I go to dinner. I was like, Laura, I talked to a guy today who is more articulate about what I do with my life than I am, right? And she was like, yeah, that's really good. This guy said something powerful, right? So we're brushing our teeth. And she looks at me and she goes, in yoga, we hear all these terms that capture all these spiritual ideas about prana and life force and dharma and karma. And he basically said to you, Sukha, you wanted the universe to talk to you. The universe did through this dude you don't know. And he described to you that feeling of being in your lane, doing what you're meant to do, being in control, doing it with ease, and feeling that kind of self-fulfilled happiness. She said, I think you've been thinking about how to name this tool by the steps on the path, but really he's telling you to name it after the destination, which is he wants to feel that kind of self-fulfillment and happiness and in control of his life so he can play with his kids. So from bed that night, I pull out my phone. I check to see the Sukha company, the happiness company, is the website available? It was, and I bought it and we went to sleep. And that was the way our company came about. And that's ultimately what I remind myself every morning when I sit down to work. I'm like, how am I creating something? And Tony, my partner too, how are we creating something that for our members helps them get to that place at 3 o'clock where they're like, I feel like I'm good at what I do. I can do it with ease. I'm happy. I've done something, as opposed to I've given my life to TikTok, LinkedIn, Snap, Instagram, go down the list, Reddit, Quora, so many places to waste your time.
So you kind of underscored the mission of Sukha and how it blends kind of productivity with a better sense of well-being. What does Sukha mean?
Sukha is a Sanskrit word for a kind of happiness, like a self-fulfilled happiness. And when you are in your lane, you can do things with ease. And I think that really relates to flow states. Flow states are a very important concept. Basically the website we built is a flow state app. Not everyone uses those words. But that's what it is, to get you into, what Michael Jordan called the zone. When he had that famous quote about, when I'm in the zone, it's just me and the ball. And he's just saying, time is not a factor. I don't see defenders. I don't see the scoreboard. There are moments when it is just the world's reduced down to this concentrated state. and I'm unstoppable. And, the guy who wrote the book Flow, from which we get the name, he spent a lot of time working on his thesis, which is these high performers have this concentrated state they get into. And that's when they do this great work in this very focused way. How do they do it? What are the conditions precedent? What are the mental tricks they use? And, he, like Prometheus, wanted to go up, get the fire, bring it down to the rest of us and go like, here's kind of how you can do it, And it's an amazing concept. And for those who don't know maybe that much about flow states, I'm sure there are many people driving or at home nodding like, yes, I know what a flow state is, but there are a few that don't. It is something where he said, after studying like artists and athletes and inventors, like, how do you get into these states? He said, I'm going to name this thing flow, because the metaphor that resonates with me is, yes, you can paddle and move forward of your own, energy or volition. But if you align yourself with the river magnifies your effort. It carries you forward. He said, that's what this is. And that's why we call it a flow state. And I think it's super powerful. It is what I'm dedicating my life to now, to making a really, really affordable tool for people who want to do something with their life, to go, yeah, I'd rather have those 3 p.m.s than have those other 6 p.m.s. Yeah.
So, one of the words that I would often think of when it comes to, like more the yoga type terminology is nirvana. What's the difference between Sukha and nirvana?
Nirvana, I think, is, and again, I am not, there are many people who spent their lives dedicated to this. Let's assume that my understanding of this is dilettantish compared to people who have dedicated their lives and teach this, okay? So I'm not an expert in this. I just want to make it accessible. And I think the concept of nirvana is more of a state of transcendence, of like a bliss, like a beyond the earthly toils and cares, right? When you've let the attachment go. And Sukha is more the feeling of, self-fulfillment, of happiness, of being able to do things with ease. And I'm not here to be a meditation instructor or to guide you on a spiritual journey of this is exactly how you reach nirvana. Like, I am not full of myself that way, that I think that's what I can do. I think what I can do is say, hey, if you want to have 3 p.m.s where you're really proud of what you did and you feel like in control, and like you've done a day's work in 6 hours or something, like, let me give you a really great way to do that with a community of people that are all trying to do that. You obviously come from a background of, somatic sort of wellness and awareness. Like, there was a moment in the development of the Sukha website where it was a single player game. Everyone could come, they could get the beautiful flow music, they could get tasks and the smart assistant and all that, and, see their score and all that. But there's no sense of there's anyone else here. So for everyone who used it, for each person, it was just an individual experience with no sense of anyone else. And I had a strong belief that community would be an additive feature. The ability to have a group chat and share what you're working on. Maybe other people are curious. You're a blogger. Hey man, it took me 4 hours today, but I finished this amazing blog post. And people are like, oh, share, drop a URL here. Let's read it. Like that sense. I also thought, could be distracting. So again, what I do is I often talk to our members, and I was like, hey, who can talk to me about this? And I was talking to this one woman, and I pitched her this idea. I said, I think this could work, but I also think it could blow up in my face, maybe be distracting, and people post things that are inappropriate, whatever, right? And she said this to me, which clarified my thinking like this. She said, listen, Steven, I can go to the Nike store. I can buy a pair of shoes. They will sell me a left shoe, a right shoe. I put them on my feet. I run. They work great. There are 100 million people in the Nike Run Club for a reason. You run faster. You run further. You're more accountable when you're with other people who are trying to do something with their life. There's some days when you don't want to get out of bed, or you're tired, and your friends come by and they get you to go for a run, and you feel happy they did that for you. And there are days when you do that for one of your friends, and it feels great to be the person who picks someone else up. She's like, you should do it. I did it. It's my favorite feature in the website now.
So it sounds like it's more about the process than the destination.
Hopefully we enjoy the process. We're intentional about the process. But I'll tell you, the destination I want, the thing that makes me very happy is when someone says, here's where I got by using this. Like there's a guy, Roy King. I saw him in the past 2 years, usually at night. You know, you can turn your camera too. If you want to body double, it's called. You can turn your camera and see other people who are working. It gives you a sense of being in a coffee shop where there are all these people silently working. And he would post things that he was working on. One point we learned he was a high school vice principal or assistant vice principal, something. He's some administrator at the vice principal level of a high school in Missouri. I remember filing this away because I was like, oh, I don't know anyone from Missouri, but now I guess there's someone in my community who's there. And he posted this spring. He completed a task, and the task was called turn in my dissertation or finish my dissertation. And people in the group chat were like, hey, man, like, what? Like, what are you talking about? He goes, yeah, I have a day job, but at night I have 60, 90, 120 minutes to focus. I use Sukha to really make the most of that time because I'm working on my PhD in engineering. That's where I want to go. And he said, so that's why you see me here nights and weekends, because during the day I'm an administrator. And he said, I just turned in my dissertation. He's like, but don't get too excited. I still have to defend it. Like the firing squad comes up and people are like, when? He's like, you know, whatever, it's 2 weeks from Monday or something. I don't remember the exact date, but I remember it was a Monday. And that weekend leading up to the Monday, a couple weeks later, people around the world that I know don't know him. Like I run the platform. I know these people are not connected to him in any way, except through the group chat. That weekend, people are posting, oh, Roy, you got this, man. Good luck on Monday. You know, we're excited to hear what happens. And I was like, that's really kind of beautiful. Like that's it. That's what this is about. We're in this together, right? Monday, he didn't post anything. People are like, anyone heard from Roy? Like, any idea what happened with Roy? And Tuesday morning, he dropped into the group chat and he posted, you may now call me Dr. King.
Nice.
People went nuts. Super proud of that. But that's where he wanted to go, and he got there. Like that's why we're here.
So do you believe that work can be sacred or at least redemptive?
I hope you can get there. And if you're doing something that's not, which sometimes you have to do. There are some times when it's like, you know what, my thing today is I need to dig this ditch. Right? I hope it is a meaningful ditch. I hope you can find some reason why the ditch needs to be dug. Sometimes it's harder to find that than other times. Maybe it's impossible. I've been in jobs where I'm like, this is meaningless. Like what I'm doing is meaningless. Like Die Hard 5, it was a very hollow year of my life. You know, that last year at Fox where I was like, this is trash. And hopefully we get there. You know, we also need to put food on the tables with them, so.
Right.
Except if we have that magic wand, we can make food appear.
Yeah. There you go. But again, if it just appears, you know, it's kind of like, who was it that said, you know,
I'm just kidding. I'm just joking.
Yeah, we'll keep going back to that magic wand.
It's a good one, man. Like you can visualize it. It's you know, interesting thought experiment. What are you doing with your magic wand? Let me tell you. We've probably talked people's ears off at this point. The two people who are still listening, bless you. Bless you for hanging out with us.
Well, what have we not touched on?
We've talked about a lot of stuff.
I think there's so much to kind of dive into here a little bit more with just the Sukha and you know, how we can get people kind of engaged in shifting their mindset in their work and finding that, you know, work can have value other than just being a paycheck, just being, you know, your 9 to 5, and, you know, finding ways to put value in our day to where we can get things done and yet we can get home to the more important things, which, you know, like you said, get home at 3 for your kids.
Yep.
You know, whether it's for coaching or just, you know, playing with your kids. I know, you know, when November comes, you're going to have some tremendous afternoons.
It's got to be nuts, right?
Son. Yeah, and it's
amazing. I would be happy to come back sometime after, you know, the little guy's here and share more thoughts and any silliness that I've learned being a dad.
Oh, I'm sure we can get countless episodes from what you can learn from being a parent.
Right.
Yeah, especially when you approach parenthood from a more spiritual sense of existence. It's like that sense of purpose. Because a lot of times we don't see, I think, the purpose in why we were gifted with the kids that we have, the troubles that they're going through, how it's changing us, how it changes our relationships. What are they going to be 20, 30 years from now? And even, with me as a college professor, if somebody's going to say, how do you know you're a successful college professor? I say, well, ask me again in 20 years, when I encounter my students and what are they doing? And I've found, I've been teaching for 27 years now. And some of the stories as I go back and just some of my kind of lowest points in a year can be turned around in an email from a former student that just tells me, hey, I just did this. This is what I'm doing. I had a student once who I was teaching a cadaver anatomy lab at Eastern Michigan University, and I was talking with her about going to med school, and she said, well, I'm not a pre-med student. I said, really? I could have sworn I thought you were going to medicine. I see you as a doctor. And she had never seen herself being able to go to med school and being a doctor.
Oh, okay.
And a couple years later, I'm sure it was when it was a few years later, but I get an email from her saying, hey, Dr. Armstrong, guess what? I got into med school.
That's great.
Because of that conversation. And it's like she never would have applied to med school had we not had that off-the-cuff kind of conversation. And those are the things that, okay, I'm doing something of value in my life.
Yeah.
And, even just having this podcast, if I get like one response from somebody that it's had an impact to them, then I've done something. And I really appreciate what you're trying to do with Sukha. I think that's great.
Thank you.
I'm really looking forward to having you back and seeing how that's developing.
Let me know when you want to chat.
Yeah. So how do we wrap up today? We've been on for almost an hour and a half. So
I know. I worry we've talked some people's ears off. They're like, guys, really, come on, go on, edit this down. I would just say, yeah, I would love, I will come up with another magic wand like thought for you for our next episode. So we can ponder that one. Maybe a magic alligator, don't know. We'll see. But I appreciate very much the time. It's just an incredibly thoughtful and spiritual as appropriate conversation, which, we don't get to have every day.
I loved it. And I'll probably, I love editing these because I get to go back and listen to the conversation. And I get so much more kind of going back and actually listening to my own podcast. And that sounds, I don't know what that sounds like. It sounds almost egotistical, but I actually enjoy listening to my own podcast because I have
you can passively take
guests.
it in and you're not doing it live. It's a different experience. I've watched myself recorded and you do pick up on things. You're like, oh, wow. Okay. I hadn't really sensed that nuance because I was in the middle of it. Yeah.
So we can challenge our listeners from today's episode to maybe respond back in the comment sections of the podcast. What would you do with that magic wand? And maybe that can spark a little bit more conversation.
That would be cool.
See where people go with it.
We'd love to hear that. Thank you guys for listening. Thank you for having me, Doctor.
Yeah, thanks for coming on. I've really enjoyed this. Just kind of keep doing what you're doing. Keep taking care of yourself, take care of your wife. Look forward to having that kid and just keep doing the wonderful things you're doing in the world. I appreciate it.
Thank you so much.